Hi, my name is Shannon and I'm a library technologist with the Frost Campus Library. This video is going to show you how to properly evaluate the credibility of the sources that you see in the news, as well as academic materials such as peer-reviewed journals. So I want you to think about where you're getting your information from. Do you seek out particular sources of news like certain websites or YouTube channels? Do you receive news from social media, or are you forwarded news from friends? Do you curate your information from a wide range of sources, or do you have one or two particular resources that you get your information from? And I want you to reflect a little bit. So, what's your tip off that you can believe the information that you're reading is accurate? Do you have any indicators that tell you that your source is credible and trustworthy? It's important to note that not all information is reliable or appropriate for college level research. Just because you find something on the internet or in print doesn't necessarily mean that it's a reliable source of information to include in your research. Knowing what information is considered credible or academic is not only important for your course writing, but it's also an essential skill to have when you're working in the field. You might be expected to do research or gather information, and it can look unprofessional if you don't include credible sources within your work. It's also important that you're able to engage responsibly with information and media outside of the classroom. There's been a lot of socio-political events in the past while that have caused people to become much more polarized on an issue based on the types of news sources they consume.
We have a tool that we encourage students to use when thinking about the credibility of a news source called the CRAP test. This acronym encourages you to think about the currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose of a particular resource. When we talk about currency, we want to look at how recent a news article or book was published. It's very easy to post information that might be outdated or has since been proven false. We see this a lot when it comes to posting images. You want to consider the relevancy of a resource. So think about your topic. Does the messaging of the resource support your assignment? Make sure that it's not too off base. We're also going to look at the authority of the author. Are they an expert in their field? Are they a journalist who is speaking to an expert? Can you look up their credentials? Websites like LinkedIn and ResearchGate can be a good start. Look to see if they're associated with a university or school or with a professional organization. We'll also look to see if the information you're reading is accurate. Can you look up supporting evidence to an author's claims? Look to see if they reference outside studies, or if you can do some lateral reading to find other articles that support this claim. Finally, we'll take a look at the purpose of a news article. Think about why it's there. Is it to teach you or to sell you something? Is the intent to entertain you or persuade you on an issue? A good indicator can often be if it elicits a knee-jerk reaction over simply reporting or stating the facts. This can suggest that a source might be wanting to sway your opinion. Fake news is a news source that is deliberately fabricated to misinform its readers and has no variable facts or sources or quotes to back up its claim. So fake news will usually present facts that can't be verified. They'll usually be created to advance a political agenda. They have name-calling, unflattering pictures. They'll often appeal to your emotions, getting you that knee-jerk reaction. They'll have double standards on lines of race and gender, as well as class. And they're usually authored by people who are not journalists or not experts on a topic. It's really important to note that fake news is not just a source of information that you don't agree with. So credible news, on the other hand, publishes accurate content. So they go back, they check their facts, they'll correct errors and publish those corrections within the paper itself. Credible news will also verify sources that they've used. They'll use credentialed experts. They also identify their authors and their journalists. Credible news will also clearly identify the content type of the article. So an editorial will be more of a personal opinion versus a news story, which is supposed to be factual and unbiased. Credible news conducts reporting and not just editorializing. Here we'll identify a few different types of news sources, beginning with fake or hoax news. Again, these are stories that are often quite passionate. They'll usually try to elicit outrage, and they might be loosely influenced by facts, but not all of them can be verified. I'm sure most people are familiar with clickbait headlines. This is frequently termed as eye candy of the internet. Its intended purpose is to pique your curiosity, outrage, or surprise, and often has headlines like, "You'll never believe these 25 home remedies." It's a publishing tactic designed to encourage readers to click on the headline as a means of marketing revenue. These links often lead to dubious or non-credible content. Hyperpartisan news can be found on extremely right-wing or left-wing news sources. Oftentimes, there is some credibility to the reporting, though it's presented through a lens that is biased, and often presents politicians or political events in an exaggerated light. Credible reporters should attempt to present just the facts with objectivity. Satire news sources will mimic published news sources, but they poke fun at current events or parody traditional news. They rely heavily on irony and deadpan humor. Credible news sources will publish content that is researched and reliable. They often go to great lengths to check facts. You'll also see corrections for any misinformation. They make sure to verify their sources, who are often experts in the field, and will present headlines that are accurate and don't play on readers' emotions. They'll also explicitly state whether an article is an opinion or factual reporting. There's a professional code of ethics that journals are expected to employ, which is often found in the work. So to recap, when examining a news site, make sure to use the CRAP test as guidance. You also want to make sure that your URL is legitimate, because sometimes fake news will mimic the web domain of a legitimate news source. Take a look for weird domain extensions, and then look at the About Us pages to get more information about the authors or the publishers of a website. Are they journalists, or do they have an affiliation with the issue that you're writing about? Make sure to also check out other information about this author. What do other people have to say? Is the purpose of the website to persuade you on an issue? Always make sure to check your emotions. Look for that knee-jerk reaction. And then do some lateral reading and research other sites that also talk about your story. Finally, you'll want to use fact-checking websites to verify the credibility of a story. There are a number of fact-checking websites that you can use to verify a story's accuracy. So we have a number of them here. We'll go through a few just so you can kind of see what you're looking for and how you can use them to check your news source. So we'll start off here with politifact.com. So this is politifact.com. It's basically an American fact-checking website, basically mostly on American politics, but it does include some Canadian content as well. If you go through PolitiFact, you can see sort of different headlines that you might find in the news. They'll have sort of this little true or false indicator along the right-hand side that'll tell you if it's a true story or not. There's one that I found that kind of tripped me up. So basically, it was a Ukrainian TikToker that shows how to drive an abandoned Russian armored vehicle. So I don't know if anyone saw this. This was sort of the video. It was basically touted as a Ukrainian TikToker, sort of finding abandoned or surrendered Russian tanks and driving it around. So if you go into PolitiFact's details about this, you actually find out that this is a woman who is Russian, and this clip is actually from last year. So they give you basically like sort of a too long didn't read overview of the issue, and then it goes on to talk a little bit more about this issue. If you go down to the very bottom, they cite their sources. So this could be a great source for determining, if a story is true or not. So another fact-checking website that you can use is one called SciCheck. So SciCheck is a subsidiary of factcheck.org, but it has an exclusive sort of focus on scientific material. So right now, it's obviously focused a lot on COVID-19, mostly sort of working to debunk a lot of misconceptions and misinformation on the topic. I find, unfortunately, FactCheck and SciCheck doesn't have a great searchability feature. So you might not maybe go into SciCheck with a particular article in mind. This is just sort of a website that you might go through and just kind of browse sort of current topics in the media. But again, you can sort of pick a topic, go in, and it'll sort of, in more detail, sort of work to debunk it. It also has citations for all of its information at the bottom, so it's considered to be a reliable resource. So Snopes.com is another fact-checking website that I find most people are familiar with. So Snopes doesn't just focus on headlines in the news or politics, but you can also find unusual conspiracy theories, information about celebrities that are verified or refuted. It just has a really large scope. Snopes does have a search function that is pretty reliable. So we'll just put in a topic here. And if you put that into the search bar, it'll bring up information on your issue. So, sort of common headlines or conspiracies that, might need to be debunked. So if we go back to the home page, we can see here there is a headline about strollers left at a Poland train station for Ukraine refugees. So this was a photograph that's been circulating a lot on social media. So if we go into the article itself, unfortunately there is a ton of ads. If we go in here, we can see that this is true. It's a true story. They talk about here, they show the photograph that's been circulating. And then they also talk about, so they verified the photographer of the photograph with her caption. They verified that this has been done through, public radio in Poland. So they sort of reported it as well. And we can see sort of more images kind of verifying that, that this is the train station in Poland. There's been other sort of efforts been going on here to support Ukrainian refugees. So this story is true. Media Bias Fact Check is another website that you can use. It focuses a little bit less on headlines and more on the news sources themselves. So if you're reading a newspaper or a website, you can use this resource to verify whether or not it has a partisan bias. So here we'll use an example here. So I've already inputted a newspaper that's well known in Canada called the Toronto Star. So this is our search bar here. If we input it in, we can see that Toronto Star comes up as a search result. So if I go to read more, I can find more information about the bias of this newspaper. Unfortunately, also a ton of ads in here. But we can see here there's a spectrum. So this newspaper has a left of center bias with very high factual reporting. So if you scroll down here, we can see a little bit more information about the newspaper itself. So it basically sort of outlines a little bit sort of where some of their biases lie, as well as it talks a little bit about the history of the newspaper, how it's funded, so you sort of know who owns it, and maybe where it gets some of its bias from, as well as an analysis of the bias here as well. So we'll take a look at another news source, this one a little bit more right-wing. So in the search bar here, I'm going to put in natural news, which is quite a right-wing, almost like conspiracy theory type of website. So if we go down here, I can look for natural news and click on the link. So we can see here on the spectrum that there's like a high conspiracy level attributed to this website. It has a pseudoscience level of quackery and very low factual reporting. So if we go further down, we can see that it's rated as a questionable resource, has sort of a strange history associated with Trump news, talks about how it's like independently funded, and a little bit more about the bias here. If you're looking for articles for your upcoming assignment, students intuitively want to search Google. And while you may find some open access resources, for the most part, you'll probably hit a firewall and be asked to pay for those high quality resources. We subscribe to a number of newspapers through the library. You can get to the library by going to the URL above. You can also Google Fleming College Library. We're one of the first hits. So on this library homepage, you're going to select the online databases option, kind of down here in the middle of the screen. From here, we're going to scroll down to N for Newsbank. And we're going to select this resource, which has over 6,000 newspapers. This is what Newsbank looks like. From this home screen, I can do a search right away on a topic that is searched for in newspapers from all over the world. If I scroll down, I can also exclusively look in local papers, such as the Peterborough Examiner and the Toronto Star. So let's start by doing a basic keyword search. I highly suggest picking a chemistry topic rather than just searching for the word chemistry. You're going to find a lot of articles that talk about chemistry between people rather than actual physical chemistry as a science. So you just won't get as many dynamic results. So I'm going to pick a chemical. I'm going to go with nitrogen. And I'm going to do a basic search. So here's my results. I can see down the middle of the screen are my relevant articles. They've highlighted my search terms. On the left-hand side, I can select the dates. So if I want to sort of only toggle to something published most recently, I can do that. If I pick an article title that seems relevant to my topic, I can, see the article itself. So I find because it's searching for news articles from all over the world that you might find that you're looking for Canadian topics that you're just not finding as a top hit. So in this regard, we can go and we can do a more advanced search. So if I go back to the home screen, which is I do so by just clicking the Newsbank icon, and then I can go down to more search options. So from here, I can sort of pick my nitrogen topic again. But if I scroll down, I can see a map of the world. So I can just narrow it down to North America. I could also potentially put Canada in as a search term, which may narrow down my results to only Canadian content. So going through here, I can see, again, a lot of Canadian and American newspaper articles. If you want to just browse a particular newspaper, such as the Toronto Star or the Peterborough Examiner, you can select one of these options from the hot links here. So if I select the Toronto Star, I can put in my keyword and it will only search this newspaper here. So as I can see here, I'm getting articles from the Toronto Star. And these are articles that contain my keyword search. If you'd like to look through a local newspaper that isn't the Toronto Star or the Peterborough Examiner, if you go down to the hot links here and you select Canada, Ontario, you can see a list of newspapers that are available in the province. So if you have something potentially from like your own hometown, you might be able to search through that particular local newspaper as well. Another resource you can access is peer-reviewed journals. These articles are essentially scientific studies that have been performed by people who are experts in their field. Usually, authors have a PhD, they perform an experiment or a research study where they will do a literature review of what's already known in the field. They outline their methodology and their findings. They then send it to a journal that specializes in their topic and is reviewed by other experts. This panel will scrutinize the research and publish it if they feel like the study is sound. It's the most credible and scientific form of research, which is why you may be asked for peer-reviewed research in your projects or in your workplace. Peer-reviewed journals are scientific in nature. While you can find some open access resources on the web, most journals are paid for, which is found through the library databases. So here on the library homepage, we can search for peer-reviewed journals. You can see here in the middle of the page, there's a discovery search, which searches all of our databases. We'll pin in our keyword search terms. And then we'll select peer-reviewed. So here are my search results. I can look at the articles that are listed down the middle column of the screen. Usually the title will describe what the research is about. Discovery will only search for the words that you put into it. It's going to basically take those words and try to find articles that have those words in them. So you really want to avoid using words like what and how and where, and really just focus on the core idea of what you're searching for. I would also suggest potentially changing out your words and looking for synonyms for words that might mean the same thing. That will give you potentially other search results that might be more relevant to your research. So if I look at the article titles, I can see if there's something that might be of interest or related to my research. I can select the title here. So from this page, it's essentially a record about the article. I can find more information about it, such as the authors. We can see their affiliation, so we know that they're experts in a field, they're associated with universities. There's often an abstract, which is usually a one-paragraph summary of what the article is about. Often it'll state sort of the findings of the article. If this is an article that might be, again, relevant to my research, I would go to along the left-hand side and I can view this record from Science Direct. There might also be an icon that says View PDF, and I can select that as well. So this opens up my article. So essentially I can read through it. Again, there's that one paragraph summary of what the article is about. I can read through an introduction or a literature review about what we already know about this topic. We can then look through the materials and methods of their research. So what was their methodology? How did they perform this experiment? And then we can also see their findings. So what did they discover? And then finally, we can see their references. So if this is an article that I want to save for later, I can do so by emailing it to myself. I can save it to my hard drive. I can also create a series of links. So potentially if you want to save links in a Word document, I highly suggest not using the link in your browser. It's not a static link. So you'll want to select the permalink option here, which will give you a permanent link that you can reuse. So if you find yourself struggling to find a credible news or research article, reach out to the library. We are more than happy to help you with your search strategy or work with you to determine the quality of your article. If you ever need help, contact us at library@flemingcollege.ca or reach out via our chat reference on the library homepage.